Jacksonville, Florida. It's been called the bold new city of the South. It's our city, overflowing with potential. Tonight, three men believe they have what it takes to take on the challenges of a city facing crippling debt, rising crime, and a major seaport poised for explosive growth. Now, the candidates, Bill Bishop, Lenny Curry, and incumbent Mayor Alvin Brown take the stage to win your vote. First Coast News, WJCT, and the Florida Times-Union present Jacksonville 2015, the Mayoral Debate, live.
Good evening and welcome to the Jacksonville 2015 Mayor's Debate. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Melissa Ross, and I'll be your moderator tonight as we welcome the three major candidates running in the city's upcoming mayor's election. This debate is simulcasting right now live on WJCT Public Broadcasting and Channel 25 First Coast News in partnership with the Florida Times-Union. You can also tune in on the radio on 89.9 FM. Well, the city is just 13 days away from deciding who will be its next mayor. In this first public televised debate, the three candidates tonight on the stage will tackle some of the most pressing questions in the campaign. Joining me on stage this evening, we welcome local businessman and former GOP State Party Chair Lenny Curry. Good evening.
Good to be with you.
Also with us, City Councilman, former City Council President Bill Bishop.
Glad to be here.
And incumbent Mayor Alvin Brown.
Happy to be here.
Happy to have you all with us tonight. Thanks so much for being with us. A fourth candidate, Omega Allen, could not be on the program tonight because she did not meet a polling threshold in this race of 5% in the University of North Florida public opinion poll. Now, tonight, the candidates will be questioned by three respected local journalists. Sitting with me here, David Bauerlein, reporter with the Florida Times-Union. Good evening. Raymond Thompson, also with the Times-Union. And Heather Crawford, anchor at First Coast News. Great to have all of you here tonight as well. And now, quickly, we're going to explain the rules. The candidates drew straws before the broadcast for the first question of the evening. Mayor Brown drew the short straw. He'll be the first to answer. Each candidate receives 60 seconds to respond, and then we'll allow 30 more seconds for rebuttals. And the journalists can ask follow-up questions if they choose to do so. Now, we also want to know your questions and thoughts. We've got a team of political analysts in the studio that will be live tweeting throughout the debate. Get on Twitter now and use the hashtag JaxPol, JaxPOL, to follow the conversation. Before we begin with our panel and their questions, each candidate will now give his opening statements at 90 seconds each. And we begin in alphabetical order with Bill Bishop.
Well, welcome tonight, and thank you all for tuning in. This is a very important election coming up, and I'm glad you're watching. We are at a crossroads in Jacksonville's history right now. We are at a fork in the road. One path leads us to greatness. One path, which we are currently on, leads us to mediocrity. And I believe that the citizens of Jacksonville will choose greatness. Right now, we are suffering from a great many problems. Number one, we are suffering from a lack of leadership in the city. We have experienced over the last few years budgets that don't work, that don't have a focus. We have experienced a great number of financial problems. Number one, we have not, to this point, under the current leadership, secured the future of our police and fire pension fund, and that issue is driving everything. I believe that the citizens of Jacksonville will choose greatness, and I am the best candidate to lead us down that path. I am a 20-year business owner with an MBA. I understand business and management. I'm an architect. I design places for people. I am a city council member, and I understand how the city works. And who better to lead building a city that we're trying to do than somebody that does that for a living? And over the course of the next hour, I look forward to sharing my vision with everyone here tonight to show just why I am the next best person to lead the city of Jacksonville.
Thank you, Bill Bishop. Mayor Brown.
Thank you. And thank you for tuning in. 4 years ago, when I ran for mayor, I made some promises. I promised that I would streamline government to be more effective and efficient. I promised that I would make sure I put Jacksonville back to work. I promised I would help close the education challenges in our community. I promised that I would make downtown a destination and not a pass-through. I promised that I would bring this community together to make sure that no matter what side of town you live on, the east side, the north side, the west side, the beaches of Baldwin, I would be the mayor to create opportunity for all. A mayor who believes that anyone can succeed in Jacksonville to reach their God-given potential with the right leadership. I'm happy to say I kept all my promises. I made sure that government operate more effectively and efficiency. I took that 20% pay cut. I balanced every budget without raising your taxes. I kept that promise. I made sure we put Jacksonville back to work with 36,000 new jobs, the #1 city in the country to start a business. And I worked alongside Governor Rick Scott to make sure Jacksonville was always first. I made sure I appointed the first commissioner in the history of our city on education for $1, closing the education gap by launching the Learn to Earn so that every kid in this city have an opportunity to go on to college and reach their God-given potential. I want to make sure that we continue to go in the same direction, and I want your vote tonight.
And now, Lenny Curry.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you to the panel. Thank you for everyone that organized this. Good evening. I'm Lenny Curry, and I want to be your next mayor. I'm the only conservative in this race. I love Jacksonville because this is where my dreams came true. However, Jacksonville is at a crossroads tonight. To be sure, we have much opportunity and we have all the assets. Unfortunately, we continue to lag other cities. The good news is leadership can change that. I have a vision for Jacksonville, and I'm the only candidate with a written plan to restore Jacksonville to greatness. I look forward to sharing that plan with you tonight. You can also find it at lennycurryformayor.com. My wife Molly and I are raising our 3 kids, Boyd, Brooke, and Bridget, right here in Jacksonville. And when they're old enough to decide where they want to live, we want them to choose Jacksonville. And I want that for your family also. My plan to restore Jacksonville's future is based on the following pillars: an aggressive approach to economic opportunity for every person, a world-class education for every child, connecting our diverse neighborhoods to a flourishing downtown, and most importantly, because it's government's most important function, ensuring every citizen is safe. I'm proud to have learned tonight that I've earned the support of the Fraternal Order of Police. I'm Lenny Curry, and I want to be your next mayor because I want you to have the same opportunities that I've had. I'm here to earn your vote tonight.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to begin now with our first question of the evening, and this question will go to all 3 candidates. First Mayor Brown, then Lenny Curry, then Bill Bishop. We give the floor now to the Times Union's David Bauerlein.
Right now, people in Jacksonville can lose their jobs. They can be denied housing based on their sexual orientation. Is that acceptable to you? If it's not acceptable to you, would you add sexual orientation to the city's anti-discrimination law? And we'll start with Mayor Brown, please.
You know, I've always said that I don't believe in discrimination of any form. I don't think discrimination should exist. I believe that everyone should be treated with respect. I have 2 boys and a wife, and I teach my 2 boys about respecting everyone. As a man of faith who believe in opportunity for all, I think discrimination of any form is wrong.
Mr. Mayor, would you add sexual orientation to the city's anti-discrimination law?
I think discrimination of any kind is wrong.
Mr. Kirk?
Thank you for your question. I have been active as a professional in Jacksonville for over 20 years, active civically, active in the community. I practiced accounting with the largest accounting firm in the world for over 8 years and interacted with a lot of clients all over the city and a lot of people. Started a small business in Jacksonville over 10 years ago, and I've interacted with people from every walk of life in that business. Over the course of this campaign, I've talked to people in every single corner of Jacksonville. And here's what I know. We are not a people that discriminates. Jacksonville are kind, loving, caring, resilient, hardworking people. That said, if and where discrimination exists, I will work. My faith teaches me to love your neighbor. My faith teaches me that we are our brother's keeper, and I will work with everyone in Jacksonville to solve Jacksonville's problems with Jacksonville's people.
And Mr. Curry, same question. Would you add sexual orientation to the city's anti-discrimination law?
If and where discrimination exists, I will work with all people in Jacksonville to solve Jacksonville problems. I reject the premise that the people of Jacksonville are a people that discriminates. If and where it exists, I will work tirelessly. I will lead the conversation to make sure we come together with a solution made by Jacksonville's people.
Mr. Bishop?
David, thank you for the question. It's a good one. I think one of the things you're going to find out tonight is about who actually answers questions and who doesn't. I believe that it is long past the time in our country's history where we should be discriminating against people because of who or what they are. We're not talking about behavior, we're talking about people. And the answer to your question is yes.
All right, thanks, gentlemen. We're going to move on now to, we're going to mix in, I should say, questions for the entire panel and a few questions that will go to all three of the specific candidates. We turn that specific question now over to Heather Crawford.
Mr. Curry, this question is for you. Your Political Action Committee has been running an ad attacking Mayor Brown's record on crime, using statistics that predate his tenure as mayor. In the ad, FDLE's annual crime reports from 2010 to 2014 are cited. Let's play a portion of that ad.
Alvin Brown says one thing,
I didn't cut 147 police officers.
but does another.
The sheriff's saying that all these budget cuts could end up affecting public safety.
And our city is paying the price. Murder is up 52%, rape 134%, and assaults are up 14%, because Alvin Brown's budget meant 147 fewer cops on the street. Fewer cops.
Mayor Brown did not take office until July 1st, 2011. How do you justify using incorrect data that inflates the actual crime rate?
Thank you for your question. Our data is based on facts from the FDLE. They start just at the end of 2010 and run through the current, the mayor's current term. Look, to be sure, this is a tough race. And this race is based on a record of Councilman Bishop and Mayor Alvin Brown. So the facts are based on the record of these two gentlemen. Look, I've laid out a vision and a plan for Jacksonville. I've laid out a vision and a plan that's based on pillars that will transform Jacksonville. My plan is achievable, my plan is measurable, and my plan is transformational. It's focused on creating economic opportunity, it's focused on world-class education for our children, it's focused on connecting our diverse neighborhoods to a flourishing downtown, and it's focused on making sure that every person and every family and every neighborhood is safe. And I'm proud. Sheriff John Rutherford is here as my guest tonight. I'm proud to have his support because he knows I'm serious about making sure that we have a safe city.
And just back to the specific question, if I could, for 1 minute, Mr. Curry. Since Mayor Brown took office, the overall crime is actually down 8%, according to those FDLE reports. While rape, murder, and assaults are up, they're not nearly up as much as that ad states. Do you stand by that ad?
I stand by the facts, and here are the facts. Over the last 4 years, 147 policemen and women have been cut as a result of Mayor Alvin Brown's budget. Those are facts. Programs in the Jacksonville journey that we were investing in that gave kids opportunity, that gave them an access to an education, have been cut. And as a result, we have seen violent crime and murder, the numbers are up. The data is clear. I'm sorry, it's tough, but that's the record.
Any rebuttals from Mayor Brown or Bill Bishop on this question?
Yes. You know, since I've been in office for the last 4 years, crime has gone down almost 10%. The budget has gone up $48 million for the sheriff's budget, $48 million. In my last proposed budget, I recommended 80 more officers to go on, to be implemented in the budget. I believe in public safety, but my job as mayor is prevention and intervention, making sure that we have programs for after school for young people.
Any rebuttal from Mr. Bishop?
Well, I think the only thing that part of what we saw here was basically an attempt not to answer a question. And a great deal of what's happened over the last 4 years is a direct result of the national economy, and we're suffering for that. And what we really need right now is leadership to get us out of that and move us toward the future.
Let's move on with another specific question. The third question of the night goes to Raymond Thompson of the Times-Union.
This question is for Mayor Brown. Mayor Brown, Sheriff Rutherford has publicly blamed you for the city's violent crime. If you're reelected, how will you work with the local law enforcement to fight violent crime?
Well, I believe that public safety is very important for our city. I want to make sure that everyone, no matter what side of town you live on, feels safe in their home. I will work with the next sheriff, the sheriff-elect from day one, to sit down with the sheriff the new sheriff, and come up with a shared vision and a plan to work together to invest in our community to make sure that we make public safety first. I will use the same approach that I did with Governor Scott. When I got elected, the first day on the job, I met with Governor Rick Scott. We came up with a game plan to put Jacksonville back to work, which resulted in 36,000 new jobs, ranked #1 in the country in terms of starting a business. I will take that same approach, and I would make sure, as some of the candidates who are running for office, to make sure that I, myself, and the sheriff and his team have a working relationship, meeting one-on-one every month with his team to make sure we make the right investment. I'm committed to public safety.
Any rebuttals? Mr. Curry, then Mr. Bishop.
Thank you. The data is clear, and members of council will tell you this. If Mayor Brown's first budget were passed without them working through it, there would have literally, we have 147 policemen and women that have been cut. There would have been more. There would have been hundreds more. The data is clear on the Jacksonville journey. It's not nowhere near the spending and investment we had. The way that we are going to be a safe city is based on prevention, intervention, and enforcement. You must have all three that work. Look, a mayor's budget is a statement of his or her priorities. I've been clear about my priorities. I don't know what Mayor Brown's priorities are. I don't know what Councilman Bishop's priorities are. I will focus on making sure we have a safe city for every person, every family, and every single neighborhood.
Bill Bishop.
Most of the jobs that came to our city over the last couple of years, and I can tell you this because I was there, had very little, if anything, to do with what happened through the administration. They just were organic growth in the economy. But to that point, the best way to fight violent crime is to grow our city's economy, to provide jobs for people. When people are employed, a lot of things don't happen. A lot of good things happen and a lot of bad things don't happen. And that is the key to reducing violent crime, is to grow our economy.
Mayor Brown.
I just want to rebuttal. You know, I focus on prevention and intervention, and that's why I work very closely with the nonprofit community and the faith-based community. I launched the Mayor's Mentors, mentoring young people to keep them on the right track. I launched Learn to Earn to give young people an opportunity to get a summer job and learn at the same time. I made sure that we work with Boys and Girls Clubs, communities and schools, Beaver Seat Fisheries, and all of those organizations to support young entrepreneurs, to keep them off the street, to make sure they reach their God-given potential. And I will continue to do that.
Thank you all. Moving along, another targeted question from David Bauerlein to Councilman Bishop.
Councilman Bishop, you were president of the City Council for 1 year. What did you accomplish during that time that shows you can make the move from City Council to the mayor's office and get stuff done?
Well, number one, as council president, your job is to manage the council, and I manage that and I understand how management works. With respect to specific accomplishments, there's two things that I'm particularly proud of. Number one is that at the time I was president, there were a lot of problems with Metropolitan Park with noise ordinances. I established a special committee to review that, and through a lot of hard work of that committee, a new noise ordinance came out of it to protect neighborhoods around downtown. The other thing I'm very much proud of is the Context-Sensitive Streets Committee that I founded under Lori Boyer's leadership. That committee generated a number of recommendations on how to better design our streets and how to better design our city. And the legislation that came out of it set up a process by which design standards will be put in place that are people-centric for better neighborhoods. And those two things I'm very much proud of. And so that's a demonstration of that I do understand how this city works for the betterment of all neighborhoods.
All right, the next question is directed at all three candidates. We'll begin with Lenny Curry. This question comes from Heather Crawford.
Gentlemen, Jacksport wants to deepen the port from 40 feet to 47 feet. Now, the local portion of funding for that project estimated to be between $150 to $180 million. First, will it be dredged? And if you are in favor of dredging, how will you get the local money for the project? Mr. Curry, let's begin with you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, we should dredge the channel. It will create jobs. Look, I've walked the docks of the port. I've seen what the men and women there do. Every day I've seen the cargo come in, and I also see the tremendous opportunity that's there. At a time when over 50% of our goods come into Florida via truck, there's a huge opportunity for us. As far as the funding goes, I'll say this. Mayor Alvin Brown stated that he was focused on the port. He has a relationship with the President of the United States, President Barack Obama, who in his most recent budget didn't even put funding for our port in. I will be an advocate every day in Washington, D.C., and in Tallahassee to get funding for our port and all of the things that we're trying to accomplish in Jacksonville.
Mr. Bishop, Councilman Bishop.
Well, I'm going to try to get an hour's worth of discussion in a minute. The Port of Jacksonville is an extremely important economic asset for our city, and it must be made to remain economically competitive. That being said, it is also a very sensitive environmental asset, and we cannot dredge the river if it is going to cause the river to suffer. There is a number of proposals out on how to do both satisfactorily. If we can do that, I'm very much in favor of the port dredging, as long as we can afford it. That's another unanswered question at the moment, is where are we going to find $300 million to do that? So if all of those things can happen, I'm very much in favor of it. I am not in favor of indebting this city another $300 million, which we currently cannot afford, and I'm not in favor of causing the river's health to suffer, because by itself, it is an ecological asset that has value in and of itself.
Thank you. And Mayor Brown, are you in favor of dredging? And if so, how would you fund the local portion of the project?
I'm in favor of deepening the harbor. I'm happy to say my administration led the effort on getting the deepening the harbor authorized by Congress, working with the business community, our congressional delegation, the legislature, Governor Scott. We're committed to the port. The port is a huge economic engine. It's responsible for over 60,000 jobs, put a lot of people back to work. We want to make sure that we position Jacksonville to compete in a global economy. No longer are we competing against other states. We got to position ourselves. As far as funding, I'm very confident working with Governor Scott. We have a task force that I appointed of the port, have tremendous business leaders on that task force, and they're looking at strategies and options right now for our local funding. I'm very confident that it will happen.
Thanks, gentlemen. And if
Melissa,
yes, rebuttal, go ahead.
Mayor, with all due respect, and I think that task forces are great, and that is a fantastic task force, but I'm a person of action. I will spend time, I will personally make sure that I am an advocate for dollars out of Washington, D.C. and out of Tallahassee. Look, I spent time in Tallahassee. I also have relationships with Governor Rick Scott. I have strong relationships with the Florida legislature, and I actually know how they think, and I know how they work. Governor Scott is looking for a plan that shows the return on investment. What's the strategic plan? How are we going to utilize this? And what is this going to mean for the state of Florida? Under my leadership, we'll actually do that.
Any other rebuttals? Mayor Brown.
I think we have the best port executive director in Brian Taylor. We have a great board. We have an excellent port task force that's working hard to make sure that we do it right. You have to take a balanced approach to the environment as well as business, and they're working on that. And I think with that team, we have a great track record on moving things forward, making it happen together. I believe in bringing people together to solve the problems in our community. Government can't do it alone. And that's the key, working together to leverage our assets, working with our congressional delegation, working with a legislator. We've got a proven track record, and we'll continue to do that.
And if you're just tuning in, oh, Bill Bishop.
Yeah, I just want to add something real quick. We all have relationships in Tallahassee. Every one of us knows all the delegation members. We all know our congressmen. At the end of the day, dredging the port is a good idea if we can afford it. Every proposal that's out there will have a local component that we have to pay for. Don't forget that. It may be now, it may be deferred. At some point, that bill will come due, and we have to make sure that it is in the best interest of the taxpayers to do that.
Actually, we do need to move on. I know this is a hot topic, but a lot of questions still to come. And if you're just tuning in, it's the JAX 2015 Mayor's Debate, simulcasting live on WJCT Radio and Television and First Coast News. Follow the discussion on Twitter at JaxPOL, Jax Paul. Another specific question now for one of the candidates, and this comes from Rima Thompson.
This question is for Mr. Curry. Mr. Curry, you have no experience as an elected official, and your main political experience is as head of the state GOP. How do you convince voters that you've got the right skills to run the largest city in Florida and cross party lines?
That's a great question. Thank you for your question. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting from the University of Florida. I practiced accounting with the largest international accounting firm in the world. For over 8 years, was a senior manager there, dealt with Fortune 500 companies and billion-dollar budgets. I have the accounting experience to lead this city forward. I also started a business here in Jacksonville over 10 years ago. So not only do I have a resume on paper, I've built a successful business in Jacksonville that employs people and that adds to our tax base. I am prepared to lead the city of Jacksonville based on my background. At a time when our city is being financially mismanaged, when tens of millions of dollars have appeared out of nowhere that the mayor's office can't explain, at a time when budgets have been submitted that don't balance, at a time when Liberty Street literally collapses into the river, I'm the guy that's prepared to lead this city.
Mr. Curry, I just want to follow up with the second part of that question, crossing party lines. As the former head of the state GOP, how do you cross party lines? How specifically do you do that?
Thank you. Well, look, I'm proud to be a Republican. I'm proud to be a conservative that worked to elect Rick Scott. I voted for Rick Scott. I voted for all the Republicans in the last election cycle. I'm proud of that. But I want to be the mayor of Jacksonville. I want to lead all people. I want to bring people together. My business experience suggests I've done that. I have a record doing that. We are going to bring our communities and our neighborhoods together when I'm elected mayor. But to be clear, I'm proud to be a conservative that has fought for conservative principles.
Any rebuttals? All righty then. Let's move along to David Bauerlein and a question for the mayor.
This question for Mayor Brown. Did you ever regret making a no new taxes pledge when you faced the hard reality of making cuts in city services?
No, David, I don't regret it. I believe our track record shows that it was the right thing to do. I made a promise 4 years ago that I would make government more effective and efficient, that I would streamline it to create an environment that fostered economic growth and development, and that's what's happening. We've created 36,000 new jobs, the #1 city in the country to start a business. Just today, Forbes ranked us second in the country if you're looking for a job. Our property values are going up. Our expenses are down to the tune of $37 million. There are a lot of growth going on in the city, and so I think we made the right decision. Remember, when I came in the office, the unemployment rate was 11.5%. Today it's 5.2%. A lot of people were hurting. A lot of seniors were struggling. People were losing their jobs, losing their homes, foreclosures, and I came in and I made that commitment. I want to make sure we build on the promise of making sure we take Jacksonville to the next level by working with the private sector and the public sector.
Any rebuttals? Bill Bishop.
Well, as having sat through that budget of 2 years ago, I will say it was the epitome of irresponsibility. If it was based on a bad pension deal that relied on accounting gimmicks to get through us a year and a half, we didn't take that. So as a result, we had a $50 million hole in the budget, which would, if we had passed that budget, would have resulted in about 300 police officers being laid off, libraries closed, fire stations closed, no park maintenance, forget about all of that. So we made a choice that the quality of life was important in this city, and therefore that's why the council raised the millage rate. And it was important to be done, and keep in mind, the next year's budget kept those millage rates intact.
Lenny Curry.
Thank you. To Councilman Bishop's point, Mayor Alvin Brown submitted a budget to that council that had more spending than it did revenue. If he were serious about not raising taxes, the budget would have added up. Revenues and expenses would have added up. Look, I'm an accountant, but it doesn't take an accountant to know that. And here's the reality over the last 4 years. Look at your property tax bill. It's gone up 14% under Mayor Alvin Brown's watch. And many other fees have gone up as well.
Any final rebuttals from
Yes,
the mayor?
I want to be very clear. I'm very proud of our administration and the work we've been able to accomplish over the last 4 years, making sure that we put Jacksonville first. And I did not raise taxes. I oppose any taxes, and I'm the only candidate up here who would not raise taxes in his next 4 years. So I'm committed because I believe the economy is strong. We're headed in the right direction. I made that promise to the voters, and I kept my promise. I think we did the right thing.
All righty. Heather Crawford has the next question, and this one is for Councilman Bishop.
Councilman Bishop, you've been criticized for a lack of diversity in city council leadership when you were council president and you made the committee assignment selecting all white committee chairs. How do you explain that oversight to a city as diverse as Jacksonville, and would you do the same thing again today?
Well, if I'd have known 2 years ago that I was going to be running for mayor and that there were people out there that make something where it doesn't exist, I probably would have done something different. But considering that I wasn't running for mayor at the time, and I didn't consider that people would try to turn something racial that wasn't, I put into place the folks that I thought at that time were the most appropriate ones to put in those committees. And if I were to do the same thing again now, knowing what I know now, no, I probably wouldn't do the same thing, because it's unfortunate that people turn things into stuff that isn't there.
Any rebuttals to that? We are moving right along, people. How about that? In fact, I think we're ahead on time. If you are just tuning in, this is the first televised mayoral debate in Jacksonville, simulcasting live on WJCT radio and television, and also in partnership with the Times Union and First Coast News. Catch the debate on our station or theirs, and follow Jack's POL hashtag on Twitter to follow along with the discussion that's happening right now on social media. The next question goes to all the candidates and comes from Raymond Thompson. Raymond.
So this question is for all the candidates, and it's ripped from the headlines. About 3 weeks ago, the FBI arrested an accused ISIL supporter right here in Jacksonville. My question is, were you surprised, and how prepared do you think Jacksonville is to deal with these kinds of new threats? And we'll start with Councilman Bishop.
I suppose, considering how widespread around the world they've become, we shouldn't be surprised. How prepared are we? I believe the JSO is as prepared as they can, probably not as prepared as they could be. They're very prepared. The problem that we have, again, is our finances at the moment. Our underfunded pension program is sucking the life out of our city from a financial standpoint. We have to get that under control. We have to get it under control now, because until we do, we won't have the resources necessary to give them the resources to pay for the proper people, intelligence activity, everything they need to keep us safe. That's where we have to go right now, is to get that fixed.
And we're going to go to Mayor Brown.
Well, I believe that we're prepared by working with JSO, but also Jacksonville has a strong presence when it comes to national security and defense with NAS Mayport, Naval Air Station Jacksonville, strong on defense, strong on military. So working with the FBI and Defense Department, state law enforcement, and working with JSO, I think we'll be fine. I think the key is also to make sure we invest and continue to invest in young people, make sure they go the right way, make sure that at the end of the day, they love this city, care about the city. But I do believe we're strong on security. We have a strong congressional delegation that's part of it, and I think we'll be fine. I think we're prepared.
Mr. Curry?
Thank you. I'm not surprised. The world is certainly a dangerous place. I have laid out in my written plan, the only candidate with a written plan, that law enforcement and the safety of the citizens of Jacksonville is priority number one. Here's what I commit to you. The next sheriff, I will meet regularly. We will have regularly scheduled meetings. We will speak on the phone regularly. We will sit down and work together to make sure that we are covering all aspects of public safety in our city. Here's what we know over the last 4 years. Sheriff John Rutherford has said it. Mayor Alvin Brown doesn't call the sheriff, rarely wants to meet with him. In order to know the direction our city is going on in public safety, we must spend time with the sheriff and those in charge, and I'm committed to do that.
We turn it over now to David Bauerlein. A question for all three candidates on the pension situation. David.
Well, Jacksonville has been trying for years and years to do pension reform. Is the deal that's coming up for a vote by City Council the right way to do it, or would you need to see major changes in it to get your support? And we'll start with Mayor Brown, please.
Well, as you know, I've made pension reform a top priority of my administration. I decided to take it head on, appointed a task force that came up with a plan and recommended work with the pension board, Police and Fire Pension Board, and the chairman, Bill Shy, did a great job. We now have a retirement reform plan that has been endorsed by the Civic Council, that has been endorsed by the TU, that has been endorsed by the Police and Fire Pension Fund, and I support that plan. It's a plan that would save taxpayers $1.3 billion over 30 years. It would make sure that at the end of the day we have safe and secure retirement reform for public safety officers and city employees. I think that this plan is a good plan, and I'm urging the City Council to pass it. It would have passed the other day, David, but it didn't. Bill Shy had it right. It was all about pure politics. Politics got in the way on Tuesday night, partisan politics, and it has no room when it comes to taking care of the number one issue that impacts this city, and that's retirement reform.
Mr. Curry.
Thank you for your question. Let's talk about being serious about pension reform. 4 years ago, when Mayor Alvin Brown took office, there was a plan that had been negotiated that was ready to go. Council was ready to sign it. Police and Fire had agreed to it. It was a real plan. It would have saved us $1 billion over 30 years. The previous administration simply ran out of time. I don't know, you the taxpayers don't know, we don't know why Mayor Alvin Brown didn't accept that plan, but he should have. because we would have had phase one to a real solution with real cost savings. And here's what we would not have had over the last 4 years. Over the last 4 years, the men and women in uniform have been demonized day in and day out. I recently did a ride-along with an officer in the middle of the night, and I saw things that I can tell you, if I had to put that gun and that badge on and walk away from my family every day, I wouldn't feel real good about it. We've not valued the men and women in uniform over the last 4 years, and it's been because of a lack of leadership. We could have solved this with phase one 4 years ago.
Bill Bishop.
The current plan that's on the table has some fatal flaws in it. Number one, the reason we got into the problem that we are now is because past leadership of this city decided we were going to guarantee something for 30 years. Nobody can do that, and therefore we are in a huge financial mess. The current plan on the table wants to do it for 10 years. That also is far too long. The line in the sand here needs to be 3 years under the spirit of Florida collective bargaining laws. That's where it belongs. The current plan also sets up a two-tier system that's ripe for conflict. New employees that come on have a far less deal than the existing people do. So that also is a problem. It's not, we talk about wanting to recruit the best and the brightest. That plan that's on the table would not do that. And so, no, I don't think that the current plan is very good. The reason it didn't go out Tuesday night is because the deal that was negotiated used out-of-date, obsolete actuarial tables. So we don't know what the savings are going to be on this plan, and therefore we should not pass it.
Any rebuttals?
I think it's a great plan. It's a plan that would save $1.3 billion over 30 years. It's a plan that will finally get our financial house in order in the city. We've been debating this issue for 8 years, and I'm the only candidate in this race who stepped up to the plate, put together a bipartisan task force with Democrats and Republicans working together. We had 3 prominent business leaders, Matt Carlucci, Charlie Appleby, and Bill Scheid, come up with a funding solution. It is a viable plan. It's a plan that will protect this city, and we need to pass it.
Lenny Curry and then Councilman Bishop.
Thank you. Mayor, with all due respect, if you were serious about the plan 4 years ago, you're talking about $1.3 billion. We had $1 billion in savings over 30 years ready to go. It was ready to be signed and agreed upon. So you should have taken that plan 4 years ago. If you were serious about it, that's what you would have done. That will be my starting point. Look, I'm a business person. When you know you have the ingredients of something that works in a negotiation, you start there. That will be where I'll start on pension reform.
What everybody needs to understand about all of the plans up to date is, number one, all of that savings happens 20 years from now. We still have huge pension debts to pay every single year. The other piece of that is we don't have a funding source associated with this yet. We could pass this bill, but it does not go into effect until there's money to put into it, which still has to be done. That's also not been done yet.
Another question from David Bauerlein, and this goes to Lenny Curry.
Mr. Curry, Jaguars owner Shad Khan has a big plan for developing the shipyards in downtown. Tony Slayman wants to redevelop the landing by rebuilding on the site. Khan and Slayman both support Mayor Brown in his re-election bid. If you are elected mayor, would you support the vision that Mr. Khan and Mr. Slayman have put out for downtown redevelopment?
Thank you for your question. I think we have a tremendous asset and opportunity in having Mr. Khan here. I mean, it's just the future, the possibilities are wide open. I've seen the plan, it's bold, it's big, and I like it. Here's my commitment to the taxpayer, and it's a part of my plan. Anytime we use public dollars to help private business, we're going to have a scorecard. We're going to have a policy surrounding it, clear objectives, and ask what the rate of return is. We're going to know what that is going in, and we're going to measure it, and we're going to publish it so the taxpayer can see it. Everything will be measured. Everything will be based on a rate of return for the taxpayer.
And Mr. Curry, would you also support the redevelopment of the landing, tearing it down and rebuilding on that site?
All of my decisions where public dollars are being used or public facilities will be based on objectives and a policy and a scorecard that shows the return on investment for taxpayers.
And any rebuttals to that question and answer? Mayor Brown and then Councilman Bishop.
You know, that's one of the reasons why I led the effort to create a downtown investment authority that has a prominent board, a president and CEO, to focus strictly on downtown. I believe that downtown should become a destination and not a pass-through, and the DIA will look at all the proposals and make recommendations to City Council. Every opportunity we've had over the last 4 years in terms of jobs and economic development and companies expanding and growing in Jacksonville had sound physical judgment, and it was approved by City Council. So I think we're going in the right direction when you're talking about downtown.
Councilman Bishop.
We all want downtown to thrive. It's extremely important to the city that it does. What has not been done up to this point is develop a coordinated design master plan. We keep talking about the shipyards as a project. We talk about the landing as a project, but we don't talk about how they all work together. What I want to see done is a master plan for the entire riverfront from the Times Union Center all the way up to and including Metropolitan Park. And how does each site fit? And how does it fit for the best interest of the city? We have encumbered development rights that need to be protected. We have public space that needs to be added. We need to do that in a coordinated vision perspective that everybody knows how they're supposed to interact with the stakeholders of the city and the citizens having a voice in that.
Mayor Brown, then Lenny Curry.
When you look at downtown, downtown is roaring, according to the TU. The Miami Herald came out with an article saying that Jacksonville is on fire. Look at Brooklyn 220. They were trying to develop that site ever since the late Mayor Ed Austin. My administration came in, leveraged the assets, worked with the private sector. Now you have a fresh market grocery store, 600 housing units, corner bakery. There'll be a hotel on that site. The same thing with the South Bank Riverwalk. You have developers who've identified that JEAO site and willing to put housing and create jobs.
Lenny Curry.
Thank you. Downtown can flourish and all of Jacksonville can flourish under my plan. And it's very simple. I'm going to start and do a detailed audit and review of all of the business regulatory environment, all permitting. And I'm going to eliminate those things that are redundant. And those things that are necessary, because you must have a regulatory environment, I'm going to invigorate them with a customer service focused approach. The private sector creates jobs, not government. Now, Mayor Alvin Brown, you mentioned Brooklyn and you mentioned the South Bank. I've spoke with the people that did the Brooklyn project. By and large, that was done before you took office. In the last 4 years, it created tremendous obstacles for them because of the regulatory environment, because of the contract environment. As a business person, I'm going to make sure it's easy for the private sector to invest and do business in Jacksonville.
Bill Bishop?
I just want two things. Mr. Curry's right about the Brooklyn project. It started back in mid 2000s with an entire Brooklyn master plan. But Lenny, I do want to applaud your choice of part of your platform. I've been talking about that for 2 years. I'm glad to see that you think that's a good idea.
Any final thoughts? Mayor Brown, and then we'll go back to Lenny Curry.
You know, the reason why we're doing so successful in Jacksonville when they talk about putting people back to work, because I made sure we reorganized the Office of Economic Development. We removed the board, streamlined the process, worked with City Council, got legislation passed so it wouldn't take weeks and months to make a decision. That was a team effort. And because of that, working with the private sector and the legislatures, Governor Scott and others, Jacksonville is thriving.
And a quick reminder, 30 seconds for rebuttals. Lenny Curry.
Thank you. When I talk about my plan, it's not just about ideas. When I started my business over 10 years ago, I had an idea. And I talked about that idea for 2, 3, or 4 weeks. But then I sat down with a team and created a plan and a pathway to achieve it. And we did it. I grew a business, and it's been successful. That's exactly what my written plan represents to return Jacksonville to greatness. You can't just have an idea. You have to have a plan that you can execute and you can measure. And that's exactly what I have.
Let's move now to a question for Mayor Brown from Heather Crawford.
Mayor Brown, you're known for repeating a phrase, taking Jacksonville to the next level, which we heard you use here tonight. Some have criticized it as being vague. If you are reelected, specifically, what would you do first to take Jacksonville to the next level?
Well, I'll continue to build on momentum we have by putting people back to work. I think that's important. When you look at Jacksonville and how far we've come, when I came in, the unemployment rate was 11.2%. Today it's 5%. 36,000 new jobs, supporting small business and entrepreneurs with our business builders, creating access to capital and credit. I will do those things. When you look at Riverside, When you look at the shipyard, now investors are starting to invest. We'll continue to move this city forward. And the way you take Jacksonville to the next level is having a shared vision, working with the public sector, the private sector, the nonprofit community, the interfaith community, all of us working together to improve the quality of life for our young people so they can have after-school programs. That's why I launched the Learn to Earn, the Mayor's Mentors, making sure that everyone in this city, no matter where you live, reach their God-given potential. The Renew Jax initiative, $40 million in Northwest Jacksonville, that's going to create jobs, affordable housing. On the east side of Jacksonville, CB Daily Villas making affordable housing for veterans. I believe that my administration has taken Jacksonville to the next level. When you think about military affairs, I appointed a 2-star admiral, reporting to the mayor, a cabinet level position, launched Job for Veterans. We have 250 companies helping us putting veterans back to work. So I'm talking about to continue to build on those opportunities to make this a great place to live, work, and raise a family.
And specifically, your first priority if reelected?
My first priority will continue to focus on jobs.
Any rebuttals? Councilman Bishop?
I want to go back to that 5% unemployment rate. I think that if you talk to any reputable economist that will tell you honestly, the actual true unemployment is probably closer to 10%. What's not included is that part of the workforce that is simply given up, that isn't looking, and so they don't get counted in those statistics. We are at the lowest level of employment that we've been in this country since the late 70s. That's a reality, that's a fact of life. And so, no, we are not booming at this point, but we can be with the right leadership.
Lenny Curry.
Listen, thank you. The city is at a crossroads right now. The city has been financially mismanaged. Our debt's been downgraded, and here's what that means to you, the taxpayer. That means that our interest costs are going up, so we're spending more money on interest that we could be investing in our city. Over the last couple of weeks, we've seen tens of millions of dollars that appeared in the city's coffers the mayor's office was unaware of. Here's what I'm going to do the first 90 days. I'm going to order a 90-day emergency detail audit. So I will be able to share with you, the taxpayer, the exact financial condition of this city.
Any final thoughts on that question? Mayor Brown? No. Okay. We are moving along now as we go to a question for Councilman Bishop, and this one comes from Raymond Thompson.
Councilman Bishop, while on City Council, you voted to raise taxes and you say a sales tax is likely if you're elected. How do you explain that to the constituents who are already struggling to make ends meet?
I voted to raise taxes the last time because, as I said earlier, if I did not, we would, instead of being 147 officers down, we would be 447 officers down, and we'll leave it at that. And I don't think anybody wanted to go there. The issue of the sales tax is we are so far underwater on not only pension payments, we don't invest in infrastructure that's falling apart. We have debt service that is going up because of past bills that we've maxed out the credit card. Okay, we don't have enough money. And so in order to maintain just the level of service that we have right now, we need more money to pay the bills. We need to stabilize it in that manner on a basis in order to get our pension funds up to level so that the organic growth in the economy can be used for restoring those services that we've lost. Look, nobody likes to say they're going to raise taxes. Nobody ever gets elected saying, I'm going to raise your taxes. Well, the unfortunate fact of life is we don't have enough money to pay the bills that have been accumulated going back decades. And all the 90-day emergency audits in the world are not going to find a recurring source of funds to pay for this stuff. It's not there.
Lenny Curry.
Thank you. So let's be clear. Over the last 4 years, your property taxes have gone up 14% under Mayor Alvin Brown. Councilman Bill Bishop, I appreciate your candidness. You are for tax increases. I'm against raising your taxes. And let's also be clear when we talk about infrastructure, when we talk about all the priorities of the city of Jacksonville. Think about this, those of you that are watching tonight. Tens of millions of dollars have appeared in the city coffers that no one could account for. Think about that. We are in financial disarray, and there's conversations about raising your taxes. Not on my watch.
Mayor Brown.
There he goes again. The city is in strong financial footing. We refinanced $1.3 billion of debt, saving the city taxpayers $140 million. We reduced spending by $37 million. Since I've been in office for the last 4 years, our reserves have gone up from about $133 million to $180 million in reserves today. We have a strong, vibrant city, and it's not because of government. It's because government is more effective and efficient and limited. It's because of the private sector putting people back to work.
Councilman Bishop.
I would dispute that budget number. We do not have $180 million in reserves in the city right now. But I would put it this way. If either of my two opponents get elected, they will have the privilege of deciding which service that we currently have right now that we will live without if we don't add more money to the city budget. Think about that.
One more from Mr. Curry, and then we'll go to our final question of the night.
Thank you. That's simply not true. Let me restate this. Tens of millions of dollars have appeared in the city coffers that no one can account for, and there's no clear answer on it. I'm going to get to the bottom of that. We're going to drill down in a 90-day emergency audit, and you, the taxpayer, are going to know the exact financial health condition of this city.
Our last question of the evening is directed at all the candidates and comes from Heather Crawford.
Gentlemen, we've been talking a lot about money tonight. The Civic Council says it will take about $30 million annually to improve downtown Jacksonville in any significant way. The Downtown Investment Authority was given a budget this year of $2.5 million. I want you to put a price tag on just how much money you think it would take to truly improve downtown. And Mr. Curry, we'll begin with you.
Thank you for my question. Thank you for your question. Look, my starting point on any public dollars that will be invested with any private endeavor will be based on a written policy, clear goals and objectives that we can measure, that we can share with the taxpayer, and that we can publish. So I will start there. We will also look at any public dollars that are currently being used and make sure that there's a clear return on investment. So when we talk about developing downtown, it starts with cutting loose the private sector. It starts with making sure the regulatory environment is not burdensome. And then, if they're looking for incentives, what does that mean for taxpayers? I'll measure it, I'll be transparent about it, and I'll share it.
Councilman Bishop.
I disagree with the Civic Council's $30 million number. There's a lot of things that we can do to get downtown going that don't cost any more than we're currently spending. We need to activate the streets. We need to make it user-friendly. We need to get regulation off the backs of the people that do want to build. We have a development policy right now in the city that's designed for 40-story high-rises, which, by the way, we haven't built one downtown in 25 years. We do not make it easy for the person who wants to go in and renovate a small little storefront. That's the important thing. That's what will get this thing going. If there's any incentives that need to be done at this point, it needs to be for residential development, to bring a permanent group of residents there, to bring an organically grown internal constituency for downtown. All of those things will get things kicking, and once we do that, businesses will come because they will see there's a market there, which will build the city.
So how much money will it take?
That's a number that has not yet to be determined.
And we are running a little short on time. We'll get an answer from the mayor on that question and then go to the candidates' closing statements.
I think that downtown is doing extremely well. I believe in a public-private partnership, working with the private sector to leverage public assets, and we're doing that. The Downtown Investment Authority, sole responsibility is to focus on downtown, look at opportunities. They got a great president and CEO in Andre Wallace and a strong board that are really focusing on downtown, and I think it's headed in the right direction. And I believe that the resources would be there to continue to invest in downtown.
All righty, we are now at the near end of this debate. It's time for the candidates to make their closing statements. We go now in alphabetical order, beginning with Bill Bishop.
Well, thank you, Melissa, and thank you, panel, and thank you all tonight for being here tonight and watching this very important debate. We are tired of watching the same old thing from our people that run for political office, those that run destructive, negative campaigns, those that simply refuse to answer questions, those that are indebted to special interest groups. You have an option here this year, and I am that option. And I ask for your vote coming forward on this March 24th election. With me, there's no on-the-job training. I know how to do what needs to get done, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Mayor Brown.
Thank you. Tonight, you heard all of the candidates. Everyone had their own issues and visions, but I am the only person who have a clear vision for the city to continue to move it forward. As your mayor, I will continue to work hard to put Jacksonville back to work, to make sure we close the economic gap, to give everyone in the city who wants a job have a job. I will make sure I continue to work with Democrats and Republicans and independent and keep partisan politics out of local government and make sure we unite the city and not divide it. I believe that this is a city of opportunity for all. We're going in the right direction. There's a lot of energy and buzz out here. Downtown is doing well. All around Jacksonville is doing well. People are excited and happy about the future. We're closing the education gap because we're working with those who believe in opportunity for all. As your mayor, I made a lot of promises and I kept every one of them. I promised that I wouldn't raise your taxes. I promised that I would put people back to work. I promised that I would close the education gap, and I kept my promise, and I'll continue to do that. I ask you for your vote.
Lenny Curry.
Thank you for a fantastic evening. I've enjoyed this. My wife Molly is here tonight. I want to acknowledge her. And also another candidate for mayor, Omega Allen, is here tonight. Thank you for being here. I'm Lenny Curry, and I want to be your next mayor. I'm the only conservative candidate in this race. Mayor Alvin Brown, your property taxes have gone up 14% on his watch based on his budgets. Councilman Bishop has been clear that he believes the solution is a tax increase. I'm also the only candidate with a vision that's actually put it in writing. My vision is clear and it's in writing, and you can find it at lennycurryformayor.com. I'm here tonight because I want to earn your vote, and I look forward to working for all of Jacksonville so we can capitalize on all of our opportunities and all of our possibilities in the years ahead. The decisions that I'll make when I'm mayor will result in the Jacksonville that we'll have in 10 years. It'll be forward thinking.
Thank you, gentlemen. And that concludes our 2015 Jacksonville mayoral debate. Thanks to all of the candidates for participating in this important forum, and thanks to our journalists as well, and everyone here in the studio live tweeting the debate. You know, it takes courage and commitment to run for public office. So we really appreciate the candidates' participation in this forum, and thanks for tuning in. That wraps things up here. The unitary election will be held in Jacksonville on March 24th, but early voting is already underway. Make sure you get out and vote. I'm Melissa Ross. Good night.